In the sweltering heat of Benin City, a name resonated with fear and reverence: Agboka, the notorious and feared leader of the Air Lord confraternity. His reign, which spanned from 2013 to 2015, was marked by an iron-fisted grip on the Yomon local government area. Agboka's dominance was so absolute that even the mere mention of his name sent shivers down the spines of his adversaries. His moniker, Agboka, was a testament to his rugged and unyielding nature, translating to crocodile in the Benin dialect. As the supreme leader of the Air Lords, Agboka's influence extended far and wide, with almost every household in the area boasting a son who was a member of the confraternity. His strict and territorial nature ensured that his domain remained sacrosanct, with any perceived threats or challenges swiftly dealt with. The aura of invincibility surrounding Agboka was palpable, and those who dared to cross him did so at their own peril. It was against this backdrop that a fateful incident occurred, one that would showcase Agboka's ruthless prowess and further cement his reputation as a force to be reckoned with. A truck driver, who had arrived in the village to transport goods, unwittingly found himself at the receiving end of Agboka's wrath. The exact circumstances surrounding the altercation are unclear, but what is certain is that the disagreement quickly escalated into a violent confrontation. As the situation spiraled out of control, Agboka retreated to his residence, returning with a cutlass in hand. Mounting a motorcycle, he sped back to the scene, his intentions unmistakable. The driver, sensing the gravity of the situation, attempted to flee, but Agboka was relentless. With a ferocity that bordered on the savage, he attacked the driver, the cutlass slicing through the air with deadly precision. The driver's cries for mercy were drowned out by the sound of Agboka's cutlass striking its mark, the blows raining down with a rhythmic intensity that left the onlookers aghast. The Air Lords, sensing their leader's fury, joined in, unleashing a barrage of punches and kicks that left the driver battered and bruised. As the assault continued unabated, the crowd, which had gathered to witness the spectacle, began to plead for mercy on behalf of the driver. Their entreaties eventually found traction, and Agboka, his rage slowly dissipating, relented, sparing the driver's life. The incident, though disturbing, served as a stark reminder of Agboka's unyielding authority and the perils of crossing him. As the dust settled, the driver, his body battered and his spirit broken, slunk away, a testament to the consequences of underestimating Agboka's fury. The Air Lords, their leader's dominance reaffirmed, dispersed, their whispers of admiration for Agboka's ruthlessness hanging in the air like a challenge to any who would dare oppose him. And Agboka, his reputation further burnished, stood tall, his eyes scanning the horizon, ever vigilant, always ready to strike. Agboka's reputation preceded him, with whispers of his alleged invincibility spreading like wildfire through the streets of Benin City. It was said that he possessed a mystical fortification, rendering him impervious to the deadly trajectory of bullets and the slashing blows of machetes. This supposed protection, coupled with his fearsome demeanor, made him a formidable force to be reckoned with. Agboka's exploits were the stuff of legend, with tales of his involvement in numerous armed robberies sending shivers down the spines of even the most hardened individuals. His success in these endeavors only served to further cement his reputation as a force to be feared. The mere mention of his name was enough to strike fear into the hearts of his adversaries, and his presence seemed to command an aura of respect, albeit begrudgingly. Agboka's physical appearance was a testament to his rugged and violent lifestyle. His body bore the scars of countless battles, with old wounds etched into his skin like a topographic map of his tumultuous past. To conceal these unsightly reminders of his violent encounters, Agboka habitually donned long-sleeved attire, a fashion choice that also served to intimidate those around him. Agboka's cohorts were equally as notorious as he was, with one individual standing out in particular. Omo, a feared member of the Air Lords, was distinguishable by his physical deformity. He had only 4 fingers on one hand, the result of a brutal altercation with his own blood brother, Osus, who was also a member of the Air Lords. The story went that a heated dispute had escalated into a violent confrontation, culminating in Omo's finger being severed. The Air Lords, led by Agboka and Omo, were known to be ruthless in their pursuit of power and wealth. Their exploits often brought them into conflict with the authorities, and one such incident would prove to be a defining moment in their notorious careers. A land dispute between the Air Lords and the police had been simmering, waiting to boil over into violence. The spark that ignited the flames of conflict was struck when a policeman arrived to inspect a parcel of land. Omo, never one to back down from a challenge, rallied his fellow airlords and confronted the officer, demanding payment of dues. The policeman, refusing to back down, was met with a hail of gunfire from Omo and his cohorts. The police, however, were not about to take this affront lying down, and they retaliated with a barrage of their own gunfire. In the ensuing chaos, the airlords were forced to flee, leaving behind one of their own, who had been struck by a bullet in the stomach. The wounded airlord was apprehended by the police, while his comrades managed to escape. Fortunately, both the policeman and the airlord member survived their ordeal, although the latter would never walk straight again. After securing his release on bail, the airlord member slunk away, his physical disability a constant reminder of the perils of his chosen lifestyle. This incident would serve as a stark reminder of the airlord's ruthless nature and their willingness to challenge the authorities. Agbaka, Omo, and their cohorts would continue to wreak havoc, leaving a trail of destruction and fear in their wake. Theirs was a world of violence and intimidation, where only the strongest survived, and Agboka stood at the apex of this brutal hierarchy. Agboka, the notorious leader of the airlords' confraternity, struck fear into the hearts of all who knew him. His reputation for ruthlessness and brutality preceded him, and his mere presence seemed to command an aura of dread. No one dared to cross him, lest they incur his wrath, which was often deadly. Even his fellow airlords lived in fear of him, knowing that disobedience would be met with severe reprisals. Despite his fearsome reputation, Agboka's demise would come in a manner that was both simple and shameful. It was not at the hands of a rival confraternity member or a law enforcement officer, but rather at the hands of a non-cultist, a young man who had been driven to desperation by Agboka's brutal actions. On that fateful day, Agboka had been roaming the village with his entourage of airlord members, including Osas, the same individual who had severed his brother Omo's finger during a violent altercation. As they made their way through the forest, they stumbled upon a group of individuals from the neighboring village of Uharobo, who had come to harvest wood. Unbeknownst to them, they had made a grave mistake by cutting down an ancient, sacred tree that held great cultural significance to the villagers. The cutting down of the sacred tree was the spark that ignited the powder keg of violence that would ultimately lead to Agboka's downfall. The two brothers responsible for the sacrilegious act were summoned by the village leaders, who were determined to mete out justice for the desecration of their sacred site. However, before the village elders could deliberate on the matter, Agboka caught wind of the incident and decided to take matters into his own hands. With Osas by his side, Agboka descended upon the eldest brother, beating him mercilessly without so much as a question. The younger brother, in a desperate bid to defend his sibling, pulled out a knife and stabbed Agboka in the stomach. The blade sliced through Agboka's flesh, leaving him bleeding profusely as he lay in a pool of his own blood. As Agboka lay there, his life slipping away from him, he pleaded for help, but his cries fell on deaf ears. It took a full 10 minutes for anyone to come to his aid, during which time Osas had already fled the scene, abandoning his leader to his fate. Agboka's alleged fortification, the supposed mystical protection that had made him nearly invulnerable to harm, had failed him in his moment of greatest need. As the life drained from his body, Agboka's thoughts must have been consumed by the realization that his reign of terror had finally come to an end. The man who had once struck fear into the hearts of all who knew him had died in a manner that was both shameful and humiliating. His legacy, built on a foundation of violence and intimidation, would soon be nothing more than a distant memory, a cautionary tale of the dangers of unchecked power and the fleeting nature of human life. The aftermath of Agboka's demise was a period of unmitigated chaos and destruction, as his fellow airlord members sought to exact a brutal revenge on the two brothers who had been involved in their leader's killing. Like a swarm of vengeful locusts, the airlords descended upon the village, leaving a trail of devastation and despair in their wake. Their initial objective was to track down the two brothers, who had by now gone into hiding, fearing for their lives. However, as the airlords combed the village, their frustration and anger grew, and they began to take out their aggression on the innocent villagers. Anyone who crossed their path was subjected to a merciless beating, as the airlords vented their spleen on the hapless villagers. The village, once a peaceful and thriving community, was transformed into a war zone, as the Eiye lords rampaged through the streets, burning down houses and destroying properties. The sound of shattering glass, crumbling wood, and screams of terror filled the air as the villagers fled for their lives. The Eiye lords, fueled by their desire for revenge, showed no quarter, as they targeted anyone they perceived to be connected to the two brothers. Some villagers were maimed in the process, their bodies broken and battered by the relentless onslaught. Others lost their lives, cut down in their prime by the merciless Eiye lords. The village was plunged into a state of pandemonium, as the survivors struggled to come to terms with the scale of the destruction. The once peaceful streets were now a battleground, littered with the debris of destroyed homes and the shattered remnants of lives. The air was heavy with the acrid smell of smoke and the stench of death, as the villagers struggled to pick up the pieces and rebuild their shattered lives. As the dust settled, the true extent of the devastation became clear. The village had been left scarred, its people traumatized by the brutality of the Eiye lords' attack. The memory of Agboka's demise would live on, a stark reminder of the violence and destruction that had been unleashed upon the village. The two brothers, who had been at the center of the storm, remained in hiding, their lives forever changed by the events that had transpired. The Eiye lords, meanwhile, had exacted their revenge, but at what cost? The village would never be the same again, its people forever haunted by the specter of violence and destruction.